it's a sad one, I'm afraid, everybody, as you probably noticed. So last Wednesday, after we live streamed last Tuesday, yeah, that's right. So yeah, last Wednesday, the news broke. I think it was Phantom Films that first tweeted about this, that Jackie Lane had passed away. Jackie played Dodo Chaplet, of course, companion of the first Doctor in the mid-60s. And I think it's fair to say that this actress, or former actress, was one of the most enigmatic people in the Doctor Who family. She moved on to other things really quite quickly after leaving Doctor Who, to great success too. And nonetheless, there were several Doctor Who fans who were privileged enough to meet her and to spend time with her. And they speak of a warm woman, even if she didn't see a great deal of value in going over it over and over again. I think that's the general lay of the land with Jackie Lane. Now, guys, when I say the most enigmatic person in the Doctor Who family, it's because she did move on from the role quickly for one reason or another. We'll come to that in a moment. And as I said, she went on to this other career, didn't she? And I think she was either too busy or not so inclined to attend the conventions, and because she stopped acting, she hasn't ever been on a Big Finish audio or anything like that. And so that enigma has been completely maintained, hasn't it, JT, over 40, 50 years?
It really has, and it sort of fits the whole image of Jackie Lane with Dodo, of course, because Dodo was in the show for such a relatively short time and then dumped very unceremoniously. Let's be honest about it. And it's that whole thing is, when you look back at the history of Doctor Who and there's Dodo, who's she? Where did she come? And the character is enigmatic, and so was Jackie Lane, and this actually. When the news came through, I don't know about you guys, but this actually hit harder than I was expecting it to. Oh my God! Jackie Lane's just passed. It was amazing.
I think that we all kind of hoped, even though time passes on, Simon, I think we all kind of hoped that we'd hear more from her at some point, see more of her. We want these members of the Doctor Who family to be happy and live the lives that they wish to live with their loved ones and in their chosen career, or if they're retired, enjoy their retirement. But we can't help but be greedy and want to know more about them, can we?
Well, I think you're right, Dan, in that she's probably, I honestly can't think of a more enigmatic actress that played one of the companions. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe Maureen.
Adrian Hill.
I think, Adrian Hill probably is the only one. I mean, Maureen O'Brien at least kind of came back to the fold maybe a little bit more than Jackie Lane. But Jackie, I don't know. I wonder whether Jackie kind of felt that she wasn't very much loved by the Doctor Who family because, as JT says, she was so unceremoniously literally kicked out of the show mid-story, to the extent where she was just sent off. Well, she gets sent off to a house in the country somewhere, doesn't she? And literally we never see from her or hear from her again. And the Doctor just disappears at the end of the story in the TARDIS and never even mentions her, really. There's no concern. She's very unloved by seemingly by the Doctor and thus by the show itself. And I think it's such a shame that she clearly got very, very rough treatment. And what I find frustrating is that actually, to me, it's the character that is at fault, Dodo's character, rather than anything Jackie Lane did. I think she was a great actress, and you can see that. One of my favourite scenes still is that in the gunfight is at the end of episode 1 where she's singing and they're terrified because they can hear the gunslingers on the way, and she's great. She does some beautiful stuff in Doctor Who, and I just think it's a problem with the production team. They just didn't know what to do with the character. I think they just messed it up. They messed up her accent changes from one story to the next, and I honestly don't think that's Jackie Lane's fault. I think it's that they weren't focused. Something was wrong at that point. They weren't focused on what they were doing. Maybe it was because Billy Hartnell was sort of winding down a bit, and they were feeling their way through what were they going to do with Billy Hartnell. They knew it was difficult with Hartnell at the time, and so maybe they just took their eyes off the ball and they didn't know what they were doing with the character. And I think the character suffers as a result, and poor old Jackie ultimately has also suffered as a result within Doctor Who circles.
Terry, it must have been very heady for this young woman at the time. You know, she'd auditioned for the role of Susan just before the show had started. Obviously, she wasn't successful. Caroline Ford took that role, so she auditioned for Susan and went into a few other roles. In the meantime, she had roles in soap operas, Coronation Street and Compact. It was a big show at the time. She was in both of those and a couple of thriller series, and come 1965, 2 to 3 years later, after Doctor Who launched, there she's auditioning for another character at a time that the show was massively popular, wasn't it, in 1965? It would have been a difficult offer to refuse, wouldn't it, for a young actress?
Yeah, absolutely. It's testament to how short-lived her Doctor Who career was, that she's the one companion I know practically nothing about. And when you compare it to the length of the entire show, her 3 stories was just a blip. And like I say, I don't know much about it other than that she was unceremoniously kicked out by Innes Lloyd, who had other ideas, I think for her and Stephen. But there's a quote that I just saw on her Wikipedia entry that as a voice actor really made me giggle, because she said years later she was running a voiceover company and Innes Lloyd came to her asking for work, and she said, "I remember you sacked me from Doctor Who, so no."
Oh, really?
Wow.
Genuine,
so can you blame her?
Story.
Can you blame her?
Respect, to her for that. I think she was just poorly served by the show, poorly served by the production team. But as somebody has I've just seen commented in the thread, the Celestial Toy Crimpling Doubloon says, if the Celestial Toymaker existed and the Savages, her contribution would be appreciated. And I think that's definitely true to say. There's so little of Jackie Lane and the character of Dodo that we can actually see. That there's very little to judge her by, and I think the real tragedy of this is the only thing you kind of think of when you think of Dodo is her being literally kicked out halfway through the War Machines. That's what you remember of Dodo.
These are the stories, the Dodo stories. We've got them up on screen now. We're a little montage here. Which this is so she made her first appearance in the final episode of the Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve. A very fleeting appearance, which sadly doesn't exist, and then on to appear in 4 stories: the Ark, the Celestial Toymaker, the Gunfighters, and the Savages. And then, as you said, she departs halfway through her final story, the War Machines. So, she starts in the February of 1965 on screen, and by June 1966, and by June 1966. That's it. It's bye-bye Dodo. So there are some great stories there. I mean, I love the War Machines. The Ark, adore that. The Savages, okay. Some of these stories don't exist, but I love the Savages, the reconstruction of that. But you could say that the character was just a Susan substitute, in the same way that Vicky had started out as a Susan substitute. And maybe they would have fleshed her out more over time. Oh, yeah. But as Terry said, a new broom came in, had completely other ideas for all of the characters on screen. So it's unfortunate. And considering the fact, for example, I mean, they changed her accent 3 times. They kept giving a different direction about how she was going to play the part. And so it's incredible that she managed to keep it together and to keep it on track and to keep the character as recognisable as she did, I think, JT.
Absolutely. I mean, we know about the behind-the-scenes issues that were going on at the time. We know that Dodo was not perceived as being the swinging element that they wanted to reflect the modern-day society that was going on there. We know all about this. But had there had been that continuity, had they fleshed her out, I think, she would have had a good run. I think she would have been able to. But, I mean, it is what it is. And unfortunately, it did have an effect. But I also think as well that maybe Jackie Lane was sort of forgotten by us for a long time as well, by fandom as a whole. When fandom started to have conventions in the 80s, I don't know how many of those she would have been invited to, because we went for the big guns. We really did go for the big guns to get people in to see them. So we went for the Doctors, we went for the Liz Sladens, we went for the Caroline Johns, Katie Mannings. I don't know.
We've got TARDIS time in the chat. Just ask, wasn't she Matt Smith's agent at one point? No, she wasn't. That was Wendy Padbury. Wendy Padbury discovered Matt Smith pretty much. Go on, sorry, Simon.
No, all I was going to say is I think in many ways, literally, her time is doomed from the minute she appears at the end of the massacre, because they don't even write her in properly. It would have made complete sense for one of the characters from the massacre to actually follow through. But no, they just randomly at the end of the massacre is it Wimbledon Common, I think they land on, and they just happen to bump into somebody who happens to maybe have been related to somebody. They've just been, what? So the poor Jackie Lane and the character were kind of doomed from the word go, because it was just like this. What? None of it makes any sense.
It's like what I always say, though. At the time, what would it have been like to have been little and watching it in 1966? Because that sort of stuff wouldn't have been looked at then, because it was a one-off, wasn't it, back then? True. And you would have just thought, like, we've just been through literally a massacre, a heavy story, and then you're getting a new person in. The new girls arrived at the end of the story. It could have freshened it up maybe for those particular children watching at that time. We won't know. We can't relate to it.
But I can't help thinking that it would have just been better to me to say at the beginning of the arc and not even try to sort of tag it on at the end of the massacre. It's just it just seems a bit random.
I know what you're saying, but it's been done many, many times since. I mean, Freema Agyeman's cousin, who happens to look exactly the same as the character that was cybernized.
Wonderful stuff. We've got a great comment here in the chat from Enigmatic Joker. What is the difference between a friend of the Doctor and a companion of the Doctor? The answer is, of course, around 55 years, isn't it? We've got people still comparing temperatures in the chat as well.
I would say a difference between a friend of the Doctor and a companion of the Doctor is traveling with the Doctor, because the Brig and Benton are all friends of the Doctor. Yeah. They don't travel. They're not companions in that they don't travel with him in the TARDIS very often or very much. I'm not saying they haven't, but I think you'd say a companion is someone who spends more time with him on adventures rather than he goes to visit them like he would drop off to the Brigadier.
Do you hear that, Chris? Hope you're listening, Chris, everybody at BBC Studios.
I agree.
You're quite right, obviously.
I'd say the Doctor
doesn't actually like the word companion anyway. I think the word companion is so arm's length. It's so formal.
Do you know what? We used to say assistant when we were young, didn't we?
Assistant is bad. They're friends. To me, they are friends. They're all friends.
A magician has an assistant, don't they? In my view. She had some great costumes, notes Crimpline Doubloon watching along here in the chat. She had some very eye-catching, very distinctive costumes. It has to be said.
The costume in the Ark. That's so out there. The tabard that she wears in the Ark is brilliant with the shield on.
What's this? Companions got replaced by friends. Listen, when I was brought up watching Tom, the word companion was what was used. It's in the Target novels. It was in all the factual books. What is wrong with the word companion? I don't get it. I would say as well that the difference is the Doctor has many friends through time and space in many, many universes in many worlds. His companions, though, are his best friends. Yeah. His companion is Joe, Sarah Jane, Leela, K9, etc., etc., etc. I agree. I think the companions that live and breathe adventure with him when they go off in the TARDIS for however long they are away in the TARDIS. That's the companion.
Well,
I don't see what the problem is.
Believe it or not, at the dawn of this kind of what we're now seeing play off across what they're calling a culture war, which probably is a culture war, companions got replaced by friend as companion. Is deemed as a little problematic phrase, as problem being mentioned here in the chat.
Why?
Because apparently it has sexual connotations. Make it sound like it's something to do
of heaving camel tongue.
To do with prostitution.
I think it's only if you think in that way. But I think we should use associate, like when the Daleks said, "We have your associate." I like associate.
That works for me.
We've got a lovely comment here from Gene Roddenberry.
Companion. Screw you, BBC. I'm sick of you.
So Gene Roddenberry adds that Dodo Chaplet wasn't everyone's favourite, but I think she had a distinctive personality. And Jackie played her beautifully, I
Well, the one thing I would add to that is if nothing else, Dodo is always a joy to watch. Whatever story she's in, though she might not be everybody's favourite companion, but she's always just great fun and a joy to watch. She's very easy to watch. She's a pleasant companion to watch, I would say.
As TARDIS Time just commented, fam, yuck. Let's get rid of the word fam. Let's keep companion. Let's keep all the other words, but get rid of fam.
No.
Well, when the series comes back, we might be able to do that. You know, when it actually comes back as a show that we all recognise and can get into. And love.
It's like, I'm with me squad now. Me squad. Me posse.
Team TARDIS, fam.
It does great every single time you hear it. It doesn't get any easier on the ear, that one.
Yeah, we don't need the F word in Doctor Who, as the Light Dreams once just said.
Certainly don't.
Well, the thing with Jackie Lane as well. I mean, she left the role, as we've said, not of her own accord. Her contract was discontinued by Innes Lloyd. But yes, she had the last laugh. Terry told you the story there. That's 100% true. She went on after Doctor Who. She became a diplomatic secretary. Let's just check my notes. Working in Paris for some time. Then she returned to the UK. She started an antique shop, of all things, but quite quickly drifted back into show business in another form as a theatrical agent. She represented Tom Baker throughout the 80s, it says. And,
Did she?
Of course,
I didn't know that either. Wow.
And she represented Janet Fielding too. Now, there is a story out there from Keith Barnfather, who runs Real Time Pictures. Oh. And he put up a really nice tribute to Jackie, whereby he was trying to get Tom Baker on board to voice some corporate videos for him, and obviously to record an interview with him. And he had to go through Tom's agent to make that possible. So he said he was talking to Tom's agent for quite a long period of time. We are talking months, if not years, while they put these various projects and deals together. He just knew her as Jackie. Eventually, she just drops out that, I used to be in Doctor Who. Yeah. And Keith being Keith, the lights came on and he started, plotting and putting their interview together. Which
Goodness me.
Yes, so Jackie Lane gave very few interviews. There's a couple with Doctor Who magazine over the years. We'll come to one of those in a moment. And not much on screen, but she did record a full Mythmakers interview with Keith Barnfather's Real Time Pictures. The links to that, where you can get it, are in the show notes of the video and the description for the podcast. Here's the trailer for that from Real Time Pictures, Keith. So send all your custom his way. You can either stream it or buy it in disc form.
How much did he ad-lib because of that? If perhaps he felt that he was losing the line, did he?
He knew the character. Oh yes, I remember one speech he did, and it was quite a long one, and it was absolute nonsense. You know, we got to the end of it, and we all just sort of looked at one another. There were no cues, or he didn't know what he'd said, and somehow he went back and picked it up and did the entire thing absolutely immaculately. But just that first time, I mean, it was gobbledygook. It was
But he gave it a go anyway.
Oh, yes. He kept going.
What sort of actor was he? Did he sometimes give you the nod if he needed a bit of help? Or?
No. I mean, he was very concerned with his own character and performance, and yes.
Yeah, there she is. There's not many interviews with Jackie that are out there, but that one on the Mythmakers release, that's available for you to go and grab that, stream it, or buy it on disc. Oh, she's also on the Doctor's release, is she, Simon?
Yeah, she's on here, which I've got recently and haven't got around to watching it yet. But she's if you can just make it out, she's on the back there, Jackie Lane. There she is. So so that interview, I'm assuming, is the one that's on this disc. And these discs are great. If you haven't looked into these already, these are fantastic. There's about 5 hours on this, and it costs about £10 or something from various retailers. Let's just say that, and direct from Real Time Pictures, which I think their web address is Time Travel TV. Or something along those lines. So I've got all of these. They're fantastic. For a while, they were on BritBox as well, or was it Amazon Prime? There we go. Time says
they were, but I believe they're not anymore, because I was going to watch them on. They were on Amazon. Sorry, they were on Amazon Prime. Yeah. They're not on there anymore. I've been thinking about going in and buying the physical media copies, actually, because they do seem like really great releases. Yeah, inexpensive. Matt Potts says, I love that video where she is in her 60s smoking around Paris. Rest in peace. Oh, so Matt's obviously got a copy of that, so he recommends you get hold of the Mythmakers release too. Good stuff. Yeah, so Jackie didn't appear on any of the official DVDs, guys. She wasn't interested in going over it, which you can as much as we want to know more about these people, you have to respect that, don't you, Terry?
Yeah, absolutely. Just going back, I mean, like 5 hours of stuff on those videos are great, but is there any chance we get to hear the William Hartnell gobbledygook? I want to hear, one day I shall come back. Yes, gobbledygook. All beliefs and prove to me that something or other.
Well, to be honest, why don't you just watch anything from '66? Yeah. With all the kindness in my heart there, but just watch any of that.
Yeah.
Yes, somebody mentioned in the chat earlier on, of course, we were watching the legendary Doctor Who after party back in 2013 on BBC Three, I think that was, where all the companions came back and did. Many of them were there in person, of course, weren't they? And Jackie did do a bit to camera. So this is her on screen back in 2013. I think we all sort of whelped a little when we saw her, and maybe even. I think we were certainly surprised, weren't we?
Yeah.
We were stunned. I remember just being absolutely shocked. I was like, it's Jackie Lane. We weren't expecting it. It was the highlight of the show, I would say.
I remember just being stunned by the whole show.
Yeah, we were all stunned by the show. I'm still having therapy for that show.
And obviously, as a very private woman, we know very little about her family. But her family did, after she passed in the middle of last week, there was the hashtag and lots of tributes over on Twitter. So the whole social media thing happened, and her family, that word reached them of all of that affection that was being pointed in Jackie's direction. And so they released this picture. This is from Sarah Kearney, and she says it has. She was Jackie's great niece, and she said it's blown my mind this evening to see how many tributes have come pouring in for my great aunt after the news broke today. I'm not sure I've ever grasped just how much she meant to Doctor Who fans, and I'm sure she would be amazed. So, nice picture there.
It's a lovely tribute, and I think that sort of just goes to sort of back up what I was saying earlier, which is I just think I'm not sure Jackie ever quite realised that how important she was to Doctor Who fans. And no, as we've said, no, she wasn't favourite companion. She wasn't on that list, but it didn't mean that she wasn't just as important as everybody that's appeared on screen in Doctor Who at some point. And we do love them all and we care about them all. And I'm not sure Jackie ever quite realised that. And that just seems such a shame to me. Maybe she did. Maybe she did eventually. I don't know. I hope she did.
She certainly did a few signings where there were queues for people to go and see her, so I'm sure she was aware. I'd like to think she was, because people were there.
Yeah. She apparently. I mean, I got my facts wrong earlier on. Let's just correct what I said earlier. Jackie was successful in auditioning for the role of Susan back in 1963. She was offered the part, but turned it down. She decided she didn't want to be tied down to that full year's contract playing Susan. Of course, time over time, maybe she had more work then than she had later. Who knows? And of course, Doctor Who then, when it first started in '63, it may have ended up being the biggest joke on telly. You don't know. I suppose for somebody looking to get involved with something like that regular show every week, it could have been a huge disaster. But by 65 into 66, the show's an established hit with a much loved, in particular, leading man. So obviously a change of heart, and maybe work was not so abundant. It's hard to say, isn't it?
I would like to think, and I don't suppose it happened, but I'd like to think that maybe they recorded an interview with her with Matthew Sweet for a Blu-ray release at some point. I don't know whether they will have done. I'm assuming not. What a shame that they didn't. If they didn't, and I'm assuming they didn't. So because that would have been fantastic to see a real flagship interview with her, talking about that stuff down. I had no idea that she'd been offered the role of Susan and turned it down. That would have been great to hear her talking about that.
Extraordinary, isn't it? Yeah, obviously, yeah, our condolences and respects to Jackie Lane's family, and gratitude and affection for everything that she did in 1966 in that role. And you saw that clip of her speaking earlier on, everybody, how she was clearly looking back on the time with affection. I think, Terry, there was no animosity there, was that? So obviously, the success that she went on to in her chosen career, Doctor Who would have probably been just a blip for her.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, that at the time of getting the audition, etc., you don't have the benefit of foresight of what you're turning down or whatever. You've just got to make the decisions there and in the moment. And like you said, to see her talking about her time on Doctor Who, she probably, like all of us, kind of look back over the past, and your brain kind of likes to filter out some of the bad moments and remember the good times, and you kind of go, all in all, things turned out okay. So I think it's nice to know that she didn't close herself off or completely turn her back on those days.
Well said, well said. People in the chat have been sharing their memories of the classic show as well, and of Jackie Lane's contribution. Lots of affection, lots of people delighted at the pictures there of her as well, because it's just nice. It's really, really generous of the family to share just one memory like that with strangers. So I couldn't believe it when I saw that. But yeah, obviously, rest in peace, Jackie. We will miss you.